I'm a 28-year-old woman named Lily, and I live in Seattle. I work as a product designer, mostly freelancing now after a few years in corporate. I like structure, I like clean lines, and I like privacy. I've always been the type to plan things out before making a move, not someone who throws ideas around just to see what sticks. That personality trait is probably why this story even exists. My cousin Emma is also 28. She lives in Portland, though growing up, we both spent a lot of time at our grandparents' house in Olympia. We're not sisters, but my family acted like we might as well have been. I was the quiet, creative one. Emma was the bubbly one who always followed me around and wanted to do what I was doing. When we were kids, it was little stuff. If I signed up for soccer, she signed up for soccer. If I got my ears pierced, she begged to get hers pierced too. Everyone said it was cute. Like, she looks up to you, Lily. But even then, something about it felt off. It didn't stop when we got older. If anything, it got more calculated. I enrolled in a design school in New York after high school, one of the more specialized ones. Not easy to get into. I was proud. It took me 2 years to settle in, and then, out of nowhere, Emma transferred to a different design program across town. She didn't tell me beforehand, just showed up posting photos of Manhattan and tagging local design events I used to go to. I got a hard-to-land internship during my senior year, something that opened a lot of doors later. A few months after I posted about it, I found out she'd contacted the same company and dropped my name. Then she went around telling people they were basically begging her to work with them. I asked one of the coordinators about it later. They were confused and said she kept referencing projects she didn't actually contribute to. There were dozens of moments like that. I once bought a deep green velvet dress for a family wedding. 2 weeks later, Emma wore the same exact one to her cousin's reception, down to the shoes. Another time, she cornered my boyfriend at a party and asked if he was into artsy girls. I told my aunt about it and got brushed off with, "She's just being playful." She started copying my Instagram too. I had this whole aesthetic going, muted tones, minimalist layouts, long captions about process work. Then, suddenly, her page looked exactly like mine. Same font, overlays, same color blocks, same behind-the-scenes reels I'd posted, except now with her in them, at different locations, but following my scripts, almost word for word. But the thing that pushed me over wasn't anything public. I started a design studio with a friend, a small thing but real. We put out a launch post, shared our mission, the kind of clients we wanted. 2 months later, Emma announced her own brand consultancy, and the way she worded it, nearly identical. She even lifted phrases like modern solutions for mindful brands, which was something my partner had made up on the spot. When I confronted her, she gave me the same recycled lines, "It's a coincidence," or "We're just similar." Lily. She never broke character, never admitted anything. Then my friends started acting weird. A few unfollowed me. One of them messaged, saying, "Didn't Emma do this first?" I realized Emma had been getting to people before I could even explain what was happening. She wasn't just copying anymore. She was rewriting the timeline. The last straw was during brunch with 2 of my college friends. I casually mentioned a company I was dying to work with, a startup that did sustainable packaging for local businesses. 3 weeks later, Emma posted a selfie in their office. She captioned it, "So excited for this new collaboration." I sat there staring at the screen for 10 minutes. I hadn't even applied yet. I stopped telling anyone about my ideas after that. I started documenting everything, screenshots, timestamps, dots, and cloud folders. My partner at the studio helped me password protect certain docs, just in case. One night, after a few too many drinks, I vented to my best friend about it. Not just about Emma copying, but about this creeping feeling like I didn't own anything anymore. My name, my work, my words. It all felt borrowed the second she touched it. My friend half joked, "You should bait her. Give her something to copy that'll blow up in her face." The idea stuck. I spent the next 3 weeks building something fake. A fake company, a fake landing page, fake design samples. I made it all look legit but slightly off, like something a beginner with just enough ego might think was genius. I didn't post it publicly, just dropped hints in places I knew Emma would find them, shared a mock-up to a design board I knew she liked, mentioned it vaguely in a group chat she hadn't left yet, uploaded concept images to a publicly viewable portfolio section. I gave it a name that sounded sleek but empty. Glowform, a made-up brand for neuro-immersive experiences for retail. It didn't mean anything. That was the point. Then I waited. I named the fake startup Evermuse. It sounded vague but artsy. The kind of name you could slap on a sustainable lifestyle brand, and people would eat it up. I wrote up a full pitch deck for it. 10 slides, all fluff. No real numbers. Just trendy buzzwords like conscious creativity, artful empowerment, and low-waste packaging aesthetics. The business idea, my idea, was a monthly subscription box for sustainable stationery made by independent artists. Completely fake, but believable enough to work. Next, I built a landing page, clean layout, muted colors, soft serif fonts. I filled it with mock-ups of products that didn't exist: fancy notebooks, biodegradable pens, hand-pressed envelopes. The store links were grayed out and marked coming soon. I added glowing testimonials from fake beta testers with names like Sam C, interior designer, and Ali W, small business owner. The branding was strong enough to look legit at a glance, but unfinished, just enough to seem like an early-stage launch. Then I created Lena RSATO. She was the supposed founder of Evermuse. Her profile photo was AI-generated, Asian American, mid-30s, stylish, with tortoiseshell glasses. I gave her a short backstory on LinkedIn: design thinker, stationery lover, building slow growth solutions for fast-paced creatives. I added 2 connections and followed a bunch of sustainable brand accounts. That was all I needed. I didn't tell everyone about Evermuse. I picked 5 mutual contacts, people who were more connected to Emma than to me. I dropped Lena's name casually. In one group, I said something like, "My friend's cousin is launching this cool brand soon. Looks like your style." I knew word would travel. 2 weeks later, I saw Emma follow Evermuse on both Instagram and LinkedIn. She liked every post. I watched her view every story the Evermuse account posted, sometimes within seconds of it going up. I never mentioned her, never followed back, just let her sit there to seal it. I posted a story of Lena pitching to a venture capital firm in San Francisco. I borrowed a co-working space a friend uses and filmed a short clip over someone else's shoulder. You couldn't see anyone's face, but you could hear enough business Y words to make it sound real. I blurred out the background just enough that the video felt confidential. 3 days after that, Emma made her move. She launched a new Instagram account and a basic website for something called Parchment. Her caption described it as a modern twist on artisan stationery for intentional creatives. The color palette was beige and soft pink. Her fonts were the same ones I'd used. Even the post layout matched. Product teaser, mood board, valet. Her parents shared it in the family WhatsApp group with the caption, "Our girl is such a visionary." My uncle chimed in with, "Stationery is making a comeback." I said nothing. A few days later, I sent some test messages from the Evermuse account to micro-influencers who review paper goods and desk decor. The messages offered early access to the brand's first box in exchange for posts. I knew Emma followed most of them. Sure enough, 1 week later, Parchment sent out messages with nearly the same wording. One of the influencers I'd contacted first forwarded me the message, confused because she thought I was the same person. Emma even used the same product names I had made up, like the Mindful Journal and Clarity Kit. I didn't wait. I filed a provisional trademark for Evermuse, just enough to secure the name legally in case this went further. Then I dropped a story from Lena's account hinting that Evermuse had just secured a quiet backer with deep roots in the wellness space. No names, just a dimly lit picture of a wine glass next to a laptop and the text, "Big talks tonight." 2 days later, Emma posted a caption saying she was deep in discussions with a major potential investor. That week, someone sent me a screenshot. Emma had accidentally posted a draft caption. It said, "Evermuse, but better." She took it down less than 5 minutes later, but not before it got noticed. She replaced it with something generic about shaking up the paper goods world. By this point, she was all in. She booked a local venue in Portland for a soft launch event and started teasing limited founders boxes. Her site listed 3 tiers of subscriptions, and all of them were just recycled versions of the fake ones I put on Evermuse. I didn't even have to do much anymore. She'd copied so hard and so fast that she was tangled in a web of detail she didn't own. She was mimicking a business that didn't exist, run by a founder who wasn't real, and pitching a product she thought was her idea. I just kept watching. The next phase needed something bigger, something that would make her double down so hard she couldn't back out without exposing herself. I already had the idea. It just needed a little more bait. Emma put out a press release through one of those free distribution sites. It was titled, "Parchment, Revolutionizing Analog Productivity in a Digital World." The tagline was almost word for word from Evermuse's fake mission statement. She listed features like curated creativity kits, artisan partnerships, and low-waste packaging with the exact same phrasing I had made up for the Evermuse mock-ups. I didn't even have to ask for help. One of my friends who studied journalism in college and had freelanced for a few small publications offered to pose as a reporter. She emailed Parchment using a fake name and said she was working on a feature about women-led creative startups. Emma agreed to a Zoom call within 2 days. The interview was wild. Emma rambled about how the idea had come to her in a dream. She referenced retention data and a 60% pre-subscription interest rate, numbers I had completely fabricated for Evermuse's pitch deck. She even mentioned a fictional charity partnership I made up just to see if she'd bite. My friend recorded the call legally, with consent, and sent me the file. I added it to a growing folder I had labeled decoy evidence. I reached out to a friend from college who'd gone into corporate law. She offered to draft a cease and desist letter pro bono, just to see how serious Emma was about holding on to this copied brand. We sent it to the Parchment email address listed on her site. It included timestamps, screenshots, a copy of the trademark filing, and a note that further legal action could be pursued if the infringement continued. Within an hour, I started getting texts from Emma. First, it was casual, asking if I'd ever dealt with legal stuff like this. Then she followed with, "Did you hear anything about someone trying to shut down new brands?" I played dumb. I told her, "No idea. Hope it's nothing too serious." That was the last message I responded to. By the end of the day, someone I knew from an old design meetup DM'd me privately. They said they'd seen Parchment's launch and thought it was a little familiar. Apparently, a few industry group chats had started comparing screenshots between Parchment and Evermuse, wondering who copied whom. My name wasn't in any of the messages, but the whisper trail was starting. Later that week, Emma sent me a long email, 3 paragraphs full of vague guilt trips and dramatic lines like, "This is what happens when women don't support each other, and we're family. We should be building each other up." She didn't deny copying anything, just threw out emotional bait. I archived it without replying. A vendor I'd worked with before reached out a few days later. She said she'd received an inquiry from someone at Parchment about a packaging partnership. After seeing the trademark issue and the legal notice floating around, the vendor passed. She told me a few others were doing the same. Nothing public, just quiet distancing. Then one of the influencers who had originally shown interest in Parchment posted a story, no names, just a note about being more careful about vetting the brands they collaborate with. That same influencer emailed Emma the next day to back out of their collab entirely. The screenshots made it back to me through a friend. Things snowballed from there. Emma had managed to convince a small investor, someone from a local business incubator, to support her launch. I don't know how much money was involved, but once the legal doc made the rounds, that investor ghosted. No more tags, no more shared content, nothing. That week, Parchment's website went down. The homepage was replaced with a plain banner that said, "Temporarily under maintenance." She deleted 6 of her most recent Instagram posts and removed the original launch teaser from her bio. Comments on her older posts were turned off. The next thing that happened came from my family. Emma's mother called me. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail saying she knew things had gotten messy and that Emma was really struggling. She didn't ask me to stop, just said she hoped I'd be kind enough not to make it worse. I didn't return the call. I didn't say anything to anyone, didn't explain, didn't post, didn't defend myself. Everything the first needed had already been collected: documents, screenshots, the recorded call, the digital trail. It was more than enough. At this point, Emma wasn't just embarrassed. She was in damage control mode, but she still hadn't admitted anything. No apology, No public correction. She was hoping she could quietly rebuild or pivot before too many people noticed. That wasn't going to happen. I was already working on the next move, something public, something permanent, something that wouldn't just hint at the truth, but spell it out in a way she couldn't walk back from. Emma's mother called me again. This time, she didn't leave a voicemail, just called back 3 times in a row until I picked up. The tone changed. No more asking for understanding. Now it was all about how I'd gone too far. She said I'd humiliated Emma publicly, and that family should know when to draw the line. She said things about how Emma had always looked up to me, and how I should have handled this privately. I listened until she finished, said I had to go, and hung up. An hour later, a voice note from Emma popped into my inbox. 5 minutes long. She accused me of business sabotage, harassment, and professional jealousy. She called my legal action malicious, said she'd never even heard of Evermuse until after she came up with Parchment on her own. Then she went on about how our whole childhood, I'd always acted like I was better than her, like she didn't belong in the same space as I did. She ended it by saying she never wanted to speak to me again. She didn't block me, though. She wanted me to hear it. Then she tried to flip the narrative. She posted a photo of herself with swollen eyes and a blanket over her shoulders, captioned with, "Nothing hurts more than being betrayed by someone you loved like a sister." The comments were full of sympathy from her friends and a few relatives. "You're so strong. They don't deserve you." She didn't name me, but anyone who knew the story would connect the dots. Until that point, I hadn't said anything in the family group chat. No responses, no justifications, just silence. That changed the next morning. I posted a single message to the family group. Since some of you are hearing a very different version of events, I'm attaching a file with documentation. This includes emails, screenshots, launch dates, and a transcription from a recorded call. I won't discuss this further here. I uploaded a zip folder labeled timeline of events.zip and muted the chat. The folder had screenshots of Instagram captions, product mock-ups, domain registration logs, trademark filings, and a side-by-side comparison of the Evermuse and Parchment websites from the same week. It also included a full transcript from the interview Emma gave to my journalist friend, plus date-stamped drafts of all Evermuse content created before Parchment existed. No one responded for 6 hours. Then one of my aunts messaged me privately. I had no idea it was this serious. I thought it was just business drama. Another cousin Hart reacted the zip file message. That was all. Emma posted again that evening, this time in a longer caption about how she was fighting back against lies and that anyone can manipulate screenshots if they want to look like the victim. She didn't mention the call transcript, or the legal filing, or the matching domain timelines. That's when I decided to make it even clearer. I recorded a screen capture showing my Evermuse site being built through the hosting dashboard .complete, with time-stamped backups and version history. I clicked through every draft, showing date and content side by side. Then I opened my design folder and showed the original pitch deck with file creation dates and metadata. The video was just under 5 minutes. I uploaded it to a locked page on the Evermuse site and sent the link to the group chat with no caption. Emma left. The chat 2 hours later. No goodbye, just left. Her father called me 5 minutes after that. I didn't answer. I texted him instead. "This isn't a personal dispute. This was calculated imitation and deceit." Then I blocked his number, and hers, and her mother's. That part of the conversation was done. A few days later, I bought the real Evermuse domain and turned it into a functional site. No more fake placeholder. I listed actual stationery vendors, built real partnership pages, and set up a mailing list. It started picking up traction from the earlier buzz. People who thought it had been real from the beginning were now signing up for updates. I contacted 2 of the influencers I'd faked the collab messages with before, explained the story, and offered them real partnerships. One of them agreed. That same week, my lawyer friend forwarded me a new email, this time from a law firm representing Emma. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a request to open a mediation line and avoid further escalation. They suggested a neutral third-party mediator to resolve the dispute and restore reputations. I didn't answer right away because 2 days later, I got invited to a business networking event, one of those small brand summits in Portland. On the guest list, Emma, listed as a panel speaker for women in creative branding. Topic: authenticity, and design, and storytelling. I signed up immediately, not as a speaker, just an attendee, not to confront her, not to argue, just to be there in person when the real Evermuse finally met her recycled version. I registered for the Portland Creators Conference under my first name only, with a fake last name. The ticket was general admission, no badge upgrades, no networking passes. I booked a hotel nearby, packed light, and brought my best friend with me. She registered under a fake last name too. We kept everything quiet. No social media updates, no stories, no mentions of Portland. 2 days before the event, Emma posted a video teaser in her usual polished style, ambient music, mood lighting, neutral, toned outfit. She talked into the camera about how her brand had hit 6 figures in projected revenue and how she'd be speaking to empower young women who want to build something from the ground up. The caption listed her talk, brave branding, launching your first company with heart. I saved the clip, the blazer she wore in it. Nearly identical to the one I'd worn in the Evermuse soft launch, mock-up shoot. That same night, I sent an anonymous email to the event organizers. I included links to the timeline folder, the cease and desist letter, and a short summary of the dispute. I made it short, professional, and flagged it as a concern regarding ethical issues with a scheduled speaker. I got a response the next morning. They thanked me for reaching out and said the matter had been flagged for internal review, but Emma's name stayed on the schedule. We arrived at the venue early. I wore a plain black blazer and jeans, nothing that would stand out. My friend kept watch as we sat 2 rows from the back, middle of the row. Emma's talk was the final one before the lunch break. When she walked onto the stage, she smiled like she owned the room. She wore a soft peach blazer, loose waves in her hair, and low heels. The lights hit her like she'd planned it all to the second. She started with a personal story, how she loved stationery as a child, how she always wanted to bring elegance back to analog tools. She talked about long nights, building her brand alone, facing skepticism from people who didn't believe in her vision. She described her design process using phrases I'd written in the fake Evermuse branding manual. She even used the phrase slow growth, high impact storytelling, which I had only ever used in the pitch deck I'd never shared publicly, except with a journalist friend who interviewed her. The audience responded like any audience would, polite laughs, head nods. Someone clapped at one of her punchlines about turning her kitchen table into a product lab. My friend and I didn't say a word. We just waited. Then the Q&A started. There were 2 people ahead of me in line for the mic. I stood behind them, holding my phone loosely, one hand in my jacket pocket. When it was my turn, I stepped forward, adjusted the mic, and asked clearly, "What steps did you take to differentiate your brand from Evermuse?" The room got quiet instantly. Someone near the front row whispered, "Isn't that the copycat thing?" Emma blinked fast, adjusted the lapel of her blazer, and said she wasn't familiar with that brand. Her voice trembled slightly. A few people in the audience had already pulled out their phones. I didn't say anything else at first, just nodded. Then I added, "Still, clearly, I'm Lily Daniels. I created Evermuse." Then I stepped back. The moderator tried to laugh it off, saying that maybe that question could be handled after the session. But no one was laughing. People were already scrolling, typing, whispering. The woman 2 seats over turned her phone toward me. She was watching my Evermuse proof video. Emma's face changed. She reached for her water bottle, barely drank from it, and put it back down. She said she needed to take 5, and rushed off stage, with her mic still live for a few seconds, which picked up her saying something muffled about not doing this here. The panel ended early. The moderator stood awkwardly for a moment, and then asked everyone to proceed to lunch. As I walked out of the room, a few attendees looked at me directly. One nodded. Another gave me a quick smile. One woman mouthed, "Good for you. We didn't stay for the afternoon sessions." I didn't need to. On the way out, my friend checked Emma's brand Instagram. The comments under her last few posts were filling up with people asking if Parchment was a rebrand of Evermuse, or if the copying rumors were true. A few commenters linked to screenshots. Someone had tagged the event organizers before we even got to the hotel. Emma's account went private. By the time I was on the train back to Seattle, she had deleted every post that included phrases from the fake pitch deck. Her speaker listing disappeared from the conference page, and the conference organizers had updated their website with a notice saying they were re-evaluating speaker vetting protocols going forward. She wanted the spotlight, so I gave it to her. The letter came in a heavy white envelope with a gold seal. It wasn't handwritten. It wasn't emotional. It was a formal notice from Emma's new lawyer, accusing me of defamation, slander, and intentional interference with her business. They claimed I had caused her emotional distress, loss of brand value, and public humiliation, and they were reviewing options for legal remedy. I scanned it, forwarded it to my lawyer friend, and filed it in the Evermuse folder. 2 days later, I got a message from a vendor I'd worked with once before. They said they'd recently been pitched by someone whose proposal sounded weirdly close to what I'd shown them months earlier. When I asked to see it, they sent over a slide deck. It was Parchment's branding, same layout, same tone, same fake community initiatives I'd included in the Evermuse concept for bait. Emma had barely changed the titles, only swapped a few words, and removed dates. Other messages followed. One came from a boutique packaging consultant in San Diego who had worked with both of us at different times. She didn't want to get involved, but she'd watched Emma's conference clip and told me carefully that the speech sounded familiar and asked if I had any timeline materials to share. I sent her the same timeline folder I'd given the conference staff. She thanked me and said she'd already passed it along to another mutual contact. Then Emma went public again. She posted a 10-minute video to her Parchment profile. No makeup, messy bun, shaky voice. She talked about being cyber hunted by a family member with a long-standing grudge. She said she was the victim of a targeted takedown campaign. She said everything was blown out of proportion and that she'd only ever wanted to inspire women to build with love. The comment section was locked. I only responded once. I posted a single statement on my Evermuse account. All claims I've made are supported by evidence. I will not engage further online. Then I turned off comments, muted keywords, and kept working. Within a week, I noticed the fallout. One of the vendors that used to carry Parchment stationery removed her listing. Another platform pulled affiliate links quietly, without an announcement. A reviewer who had once called her a creative visionary posted a story with just the text, "I've updated my partnerships moving forward. Thanks for the heads up, everyone." Then someone leaked an internal email. It was addressed to Emma's assistant. The message asked her to scrub any mentions of Evermuse-style language from all future content. It said, "Check the Instagram captions from last spring and clean up anything that looks lifted." It ended with, "We cannot afford another overlap. Be careful this time." The assistant didn't just leak the email. She resigned the next day and posted on her personal account that she was misled and manipulated into defending something she didn't create. She offered to speak with my lawyer. My lawyer took her up on it immediately. We filed a counterclaim the same week: defamation, emotional distress, and false legal threats. The goal wasn't to get money. It was to shut the whole thing down legally and make sure there were consequences on paper. 2 days after that, Emma's lawyer contacted mine and withdrew pursuit of all damages. The message used phrases like seeking resolution and hoping to avoid further escalation. They wanted everything off the table. We didn't agree to anything: no settlement, no apology posted, no silence bought. And then the article started. 2 business blogs posted breakdowns of the Parchment situation. One titled their piece, "The Brand That Built Itself on a Lie, a Case Study." Another ran with, "How a Fake Startup Exposed a Real Copycat." Neither of them used Emma's full name, but anyone in the industry knew who they were talking about. The screenshots they included had already been shared across dozens of private Slack groups. Emma's reputation didn't just take a hit, it collapsed. That was the point. I stopped participating. I deleted myself from the family group chat, left all the extended family threads. I blocked the cousins who had sided with her early on, even the ones who never apologized. I left it all. Then, one afternoon, a plain envelope showed up in my mail, no return address. Inside was a folded piece of lined paper with a note written in purple ink. I should have stayed in my lane. I was jealous. I'm sorry. It wasn't signed, but I recognized the handwriting. I scanned it, took a photo for the records, and filed it away with everything else in the folder. I didn't reply. I didn't unblock her. I didn't call her family to ask who knew what. I already knew what mattered. That note could have been sent months ago, before the trademarks, before the fake launch, before the conference stage. She waited until it all fell apart, Now she wanted a reset. She wasn't going to get one. The documentary deal came through after the conference fallout started making rounds in online business circles. A small independent production company had been developing a series about modern intellectual theft, everything from recipe plagiarism to stolen digital art. Someone on their research team came across the timeline folder I'd shared with the conference organizers. They reached out, asking if I'd be open to telling my side. The contract was straightforward. I'd appear in one episode only. No dramatic reenactments. No invasive questions. Just the facts, my voice, my timeline, and my receipts. The producer agreed to keep Emma's name blurred, unless already public. I signed the limited appearance clause and scheduled 2 recording days. The crew came out the following week, just 3 people: producer, camera operator, and sound. They filmed inside my apartment for most of it. Close-ups of Evermuse's mock-ups, the original sketchbooks, the fake pitch deck, the timestamps folder. We shot a short scene where I walked through the timeline using physical documents and voiceover. They filmed me sketching designs at my kitchen table, answering some calm, straightforward questions about what had happened and when. No dramatic music, no emotional edits, just the story. Emma tried to block it. Her lawyer sent a cease and desist to the production company, claiming intentional character defamation and exploitation of personal conflict. The company's legal team reviewed it and responded that the material being used was already in the public domain or obtained with full consent. They kept filming. Nothing was changed. A week later, the company dropped a 30-second teaser trailer across social platforms. The headline read, "The Copycat Cousin: How One Woman Turned Plagiarism into a Wake-Up Call." The clip showed quick flashes of screenshots, a blurred-out Instagram grid, me flipping through a sketchpad, and a clip of Emma's now deleted crying video with her name and voice masked. The trailer went viral by the end of the day. The internet picked a side fast. Within hours, threads popped up across Twitter and Reddit. People were dissecting the screenshots, analyzing pitch decks, reposting clips of the conference Q&A where I'd asked Emma about Evermuse. YouTube reaction videos followed, commentators breaking down the branding, comparing fonts, mocking her fake testimonials. Someone made a side-by-side TikTok comparing her heritage stationery speech with lines from the fake Evermuse mission statement. Emma's online presence started disappearing one platform at a time. First Instagram, then TikTok, then the Parchment website redirected to a blank page, linked. In was the only thing left up until even that went dark 3 days later. Her name vanished from every platform she'd used to promote herself. Meanwhile, my inbox looked completely different. Within a week of the trailer going viral, I received 3 freelance inquiries from companies I'd never spoken to before. All of them said they'd seen the teaser and wanted to talk about potential collaborations. 2 were local. One was from a design house in Toronto that wanted to co-develop a stationery line for small retailers. I took all 3 meetings. An old professor from design school sent me a message the same day the full trailer hit 1 million views. He said he'd always respected my work and was proud I hadn't taken shortcuts to get here. He'd watched everything unfold from a distance and thought I'd handled it with quiet strength. Then came the full collapse. One of the investigative blogs released a report showing that Emma had falsified most of Parchment's testimonials. The article included screenshots from Fiverr receipts for fake reviews and a leaked document showing made-up sales metrics she'd shared with a local investor. A few former collaborators went public and said they'd cut ties. One of them shared an email where Emma tried to convince them to hold off on public statements because she was dealing with a family vendetta. Emma's lawyer contacted mine again, this time not to threaten but to ask for a resolution. They said Emma had experienced extreme personal distress and asked if I'd be willing to resolve things quietly. No money, no public statements, just peace. My response through my lawyer was simple. I didn't ruin her. I just stopped protecting her. We signed a ceasefire agreement. No damages demanded. No future claims allowed. She would walk away, and I wouldn't pursue further action as long as she stopped using anything related to Evermuse or referencing our connection. A month later, I received an official copy of her business dissolution paperwork. Parchment was gone, legally closed. The full documentary episode aired that Friday night. I watched it alone in my apartment with a glass of wine, no press. No live reaction, no celebration, just quiet. It ended on a shot of my hands, flipping through a page of Evermuse sketches. The screen faded to black with a line. Some stories aren't about revenge. They're about letting the truth speak louder. A few weeks later, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. A classmate from college wrote, "Hey, saw the doc. Never knew it was that deep. You handled it with so much grace." I replied, "Thanks." Then I closed the laptop and went back to work because, unlike Emma, I never needed to steal an identity to build one of my own.